أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our Master after the Prophet, the commander of the faithful, the prince of the believers, the protector of the Prophet and his message, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah, we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected brothers and sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, today, brothers and sisters, we're going to continue on our nightly topics regarding the virtuous community. There was a young brother who, his name was Adam. And Adam was coming into the holy month of Ramadan and was building a beautiful relationship with the Holy Quran. Every day, he wasn't just reading a juz'a, he was reading multiple ajza. And in fact, his goal was he wanted to complete the Holy Quran multiple times over in the holy month. He was talking to one of his friends, and his friend was telling him about lectures that he's listening to and narrations that he's been reading and trying to learn more about the Prophet's life, learn more about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And Adam just looked at his friend and said, I think I'm good just dedicating myself and all my time to the Holy Quran. So they got into this conversation of, is the Holy Quran enough? Is this book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is this enough? And interestingly enough, this was a conversation that people had all the way back to the time of the Prophet. And this is a conversation, inshallah, we're going to engage in when it comes to divine guidance. That's what we're talking about here tonight, is divine guidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His beautiful mercy and justice, how does He guide humanity? What has He given us as guides? Of course, there is the revelation. Of course, there is His message and His beautiful, immaculate word. But He gave us that message with individuals. There were carriers, messengers of that message, recipients of the message, messengers of that message, and people who implemented that message. What we're going to be talking about tonight, inshallah, is what were the three roles that were had by these divine representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? A prophet, Nabi, a messenger, a Rasul, and an Imam, or an immaculate divine leader or guide. What's the difference between each one of these roles? And then furthermore, what were the roles that were played specifically by Ahlul Bayt, the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, after the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him? Let's jump right into it. So we established that Adam alayhi salam and the sons of Adam would be the viceroys of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. And one of the most beautiful things about this creation of God is that this creation was different than animals and different than the angels. In the fact that Adam and his sons, us as humanity, we would have both carnal-based desires and we would have the intellect. And what was so beautiful about humanity is that we had the potential to be better than the angels because of the challenge that we have accompanied by base desires. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this opportunity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, in chapter 95 in Surah At-Teen, He says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. That we created this human in the best of forms, but then we relegated him to the lowest of the low. And that relegation to the lowest of the low is dictated by what? Our actions, our deeds. But at the same time, with our actions and our deeds, we have this excuse before God. Oh Allah, if you didn't guide us, then what's us to blame for? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this hujjah upon us, this proof upon us through His word and through His representatives. The first type of representative comes through that role of the prophet, a Nabi. Now, every human being is before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and potentially has the ability to be a recipient of God's message, of God's divine guidance. However, It is that battle that we have consistently, constantly throughout our lives between our intellect and our desire, and the choices that we make that allow this veil to be put up so that we are relegated to the lowest of the low, or continue to descend in our ranks, in our ability to receive what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in divine guidance for us. Or if we remain pristine and we make it our true life's dedication to be the purest of the pure, and we allow in every choice, in every instance, our intellect to reign supreme, then we are able to receive God's word. That is the potential of humanity. The practical reality is that across time, there were only certain individuals that were able to receive God's word. And those individuals were the prophets. Of course, there are circumstances and instances where individuals that would be saintly figures would have that, and some of them would be considered throughout history at the level of prophets and even greater. Some examples, for example, include Lady Fatima alayhi salam, Lady Khadija alayhi salam, Lady Maryam alayhi salam, and some others. When you look at the prophet, the key role of this Nabi, of the prophet, is his role into receiving the message. Now, some of us may go back and say, why aren't we receiving the message? And we just mentioned that it has to do with our actions. Take the example of the GSM signals when it comes to our phones, right? When you're looking at this whole systems of GSM signals are being sent all the time. If your device, if your phone is not in front of you, you wouldn't know when someone's calling you. Unless you have this mechanism, this device that is able to receive, then that signal is not going to be alerted for you to say, oh yes, now I'm receiving it. But once you have your phone in front of you, that is the indicator for you, or the mechanism that allows you to receive the indication that now I'm receiving a phone call. The role that the prophets played are those that they had that GSM system in place. It wasn't altered, it wasn't corrupted in any way by their deeds and by their actions, because they were pure and they had the ability to continue to receive that. Now, when it comes to the next role, as in not every divine guide was merely a prophet. There's also other roles that were there as well. When it comes to the next role, that is that of the messenger, of the Rasul. When it comes to the messenger, not only did they receive that message, and they had that pure soul that was untainted by anything else to receive it, they also were tasked with the role of disseminating that, of giving that to other people as well. And this role was so important. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us these individuals not simply as a proof upon us that, look, there are people that have this role, have this pure state of being where they know what divine guidance is. But now there's individuals that are tasked of go and spread my message and tell people about it. Throughout history, the messengers were either messengers to a tribe, messengers to a nation, or even messengers to humanity. With Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his role was that of a messenger to all of humanity. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have not sent you but as a mercy to all of mankind, to all of the worlds. His messenger, his state of being that messenger was for everybody. And the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, played that role so beautifully in his conduct and in his behavior. Now, look at the relationship that we have with this messenger and the message itself. Some people have this position, like Adam did in the example that I mentioned earlier with the story that I opened up with, that I'm good enough with the word of God. I'm good enough with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may treat it as, for example, when you're waiting for mail, you're waiting for an important letter as a response from the college or the university that you just applied for, and you're waiting to see if they accepted you into their program or not. You're waiting to get a valuable piece of information for, let's say, some of us who are applying for loans or assistance during the COVID-19 crisis. And though many of us are waiting for answers digitally, you're going to be waiting for it in your inbox. a lot of people are still receiving mail, right? So you're looking in the mail and you're waiting to see what the message is. The mailman or the mailwoman or the courier service that's providing you the mail, you're not really too concerned about them as an individual getting you the mail. It's just given to you and it's in your mailbox and you're going to open it. You don't think twice about the character or the personality or the virtues that this individual has. They're doing their job, they're putting in the mail, and they go on their way. Now, think of another example of delivering a message. You are the CEO of your company, your enterprise, and you're entering into negotiations with another company regarding, let's say, a merger or an acquisition of some sort. And you enter the meeting, and the CEO of the company is not there. For whatever reason, they're not there. Who do they send? Let's take a couple options. One option is they're going to send an intern, right? And the intern comes in, they're really prepared, they're really trying hard, they have all the paperwork, and they're honest with you, and they say, you know, I've only been doing this, I'm only been a part of the company for about 3 weeks now, but I'm really going to try my best, right? You're not going to take him seriously. You're not going to have that conversation with him, right? But if, let's say, they send the second in line in command at the company, or someone who is a partner in the company at the same level, or part of the board of directors, you're going to take them seriously. Or even, let's say, somebody who is in the position to negotiate on behalf of the company, in-house counsel, right? That individual is tasked with that role to make sure that they're representing the company and its interests in the best way possible. They know what the company's leadership wants. They know what's the bottom line, let's say, in negotiation of a deal. They know truly the character of the transaction that has to transpire. Otherwise, you're not going to take that message seriously. The message itself that's relayed by the leadership is equally as important as the person that is relaying that message. The person relaying that message is necessary in order for that message to be relayed properly. When you look at that kind of relationship versus the mailbox relationship, definitely your view of the message itself is going to be is distinguished or is distinct from these two. The way we look at our relationship with the Holy Quran, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's word, is that of that relationship in you entering into a meeting and there's somebody that the representation of that message is just as important. Why? Because there's a relationship that's going to continue afterwards. So the relationship that I have with the mailman stops at them delivering the mail. They deliver the message, now I got it. I got the message, I move on with my life. But the way I interact with the message that has beyond a mere simple transaction, but now it's relational, there's an actual relationship here. I have a relationship with this company that I'm merging with or that we're acquiring. I have a relationship with the people that I'm dealing with. That relationship is the one that we look at with regards to the message and the messenger. So the messenger himself needs to be someone of such pristine character, of such immaculate behavior, and of conduct that they need to be what we would say either infallible or immaculate. Immaculate in the sense it is by their choice. So if the connotation of infallibility that we're using is that this is an individual that is infallible by their choice, by their free will, then we'll accept that. But this individual and their character is immaculate because their character matters just as much as the message itself. And you look and you see that if it was to our Holy Prophet Muhammad or the rest of our messengers and prophets before them, we look to them in their example to see how do we actually implement this message in our lives? How do we make sure that this message is something that we truly manifest in our own lifestyle and our conduct? The individuals that are looking at the Holy Quran and saying this book of God is enough for us, as some individuals actually at the last days of the Prophet's life, they would have this sense and say, you know what, Hasbuna Kitabullah, the book of God is enough for us. All we need is his word. But the Holy Prophet would emphasize even before those days that I'm leaving amongst you two weighty things, the book of God and my family, my household. And in some narrations to our brothers and sisters from other schools of thought, it is to say the book of God and my sunnah, my tradition. But even with that, the emphasis of my tradition, as in the Prophet's lifestyle, the things that he did and didn't do, would also point to his family. And his family being what? The guardians of that message. Him being the last messenger and them being the guardians of that message, the divine leaders that would continue on after him in protecting that message. Now, when I look at the messenger and the message itself, I have to have this relationship with each other. I can't merely just look at the message and say, I don't care who the messenger is. Why? What if there was some type of mistake made in delivering that message? Unless that messenger is immaculate in every aspect of their life, not in just merely saying that they were immaculate in the delivery. What if during the times that he was not necessarily giving the wahy, giving the revelation, what if he wasn't immaculate and at some time he decided, you know what, I'm saying something. Are people going to be knowing are people knowing and distinguishing when he was receiving, when he was delivering or not? He was an individual, the messenger, as a divine representative of God at all times. He was one who chose his perfection and chose his immaculate state at every aspect. O Muhammad, ما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. We have not sent you except a mercy to mankind. It's not only in these instances that you're a mercy to mankind. You, yourself, as an individual, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak out of whim. He is nothing but revelation. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, in that role as the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every word he said, everything that he did and refrained from was of revelation. It wasn't at certain times, it was on and then it was off. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi was on all the time. Now, that's so important for us to understand in our view of the Prophet, in order to determine a relationship with him, that he chose all the time to be on, giving that message and being that pristine example for people. Now, when it comes to the next role, after the Prophet, after the messenger, what comes? The role of an imam. The Prophet received the message. So he was that divine proof of God upon creation, that there is an individual who is receiving the message. If people wish to get that message from him, he is there. Then there's an individual who is, I am sent as a mercy to people. I am sent to be a messenger, that I have this role to give people this message as the Rasul. And then there's this role of an imam, a divine leader or a guide. And what this person does is he implements what has been received and what has been given. The imam in his role is one who educates people, is one who emphasizes the practice of the faith, is one who is amongst the people as their leader, as the one that they point to and say, we are receiving leadership and we are implementing all aspects of the message that was received and given to us. Now, the imam's role was not necessarily just by the individuals that we refer to as an imam, being the imams, the 12 imams of Ahlul Bayt. Many of a number of our prophets and messengers actually have the role of imam. For example, Ibrahim, and definitely our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He played the role of the imam. Now, when it comes to that role, it needs to be there after the message has been completely received and given to the people. That role of the imam is so important because it comes to the coming full circle of divine guidance. When the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi came to the people in his last days and announced what would be the state of the people after him. And part of that was the narration that we just mentioned, Hadith al-Thaqalain, where the Prophet emphasized leaving the two weighty things. He also, in that time, which was known as the farewell pilgrimage, where the Prophet would go on his last pilgrimage and call onto people from all parts of the Muslim Ummah, the Muslim nation. And it would be known that this is the Prophet's last days, this is his last pilgrimage. So people in the thousands joined him. Some narrations say that it was over 100,000 people that joined him on this pilgrimage. At the farewell pilgrimage, when they were returning home, they stopped at a place called Ghadir Khum. At Ghadir Khum, as many of you know the story, at Ghadir Khum, the Prophet had a monumental announcement in which he delivered a 3-hour sermon to people, and people were standing on the hot sands of Arabia under the scorching sun and waiting for the Prophet to deliver this message that he was giving. He was reminding them of their responsibilities towards another, towards their families, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he ended that message with Hadith al-Thaqalain and the successorship of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. He would tell the people who has more guardianship or has more ownership over the believers than they do over themselves. Everyone replied in unison, Anta ya Rasulullah, you, O Messenger of God, you own us. You have a mastership over us greater than we do over our own selves. This relationship they had with the Prophet was, Ya Rasulullah, we are your servants. And through your service and through serving you, we are serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was a beautiful relationship. Now, how much of that translated into reality, that of course comes down to each person and their conduct. The Prophet said, whoever I have this guardianship, leadership, mastership over, man kuntu mawla, fahadha aliyyun mawla. Whoever I am his master, this Ali is his master. And it was from that day forward that the people had this huge announcement, which was not something that was necessarily new to them, because the Prophet on many different occasions before that, whether it be in smaller gatherings, in the mosque, with his family, with his companions, had mentioned a number of things that indicated clearly who the Prophet's choice of divine leadership would be. And again, the Prophet's choice is God's choice. Why? Because وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak out of him. He is nothing but revelation. So it wasn't merely a sharing of this Ali, this my cousin, my son-in-law, he's somebody that I love and I adore because he's a family member and he's been with me since day one. It's not merely that. This was God's choice. Mind you, the verse from the Holy Quran, the revelation that came and said that if you do not give this message, if you do not deliver this piece of news to the people in this way, then you didn't deliver your message. And then the verse that would come afterwards in chapter 5 of the Holy Quran, that الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ, and today I have completed for you religion and I am satisfied with Islam as your religion, as your faith. That came after the delivery of this specific message to the people. Now, of course, when it came to this relationship, we said that this wasn't something that was new to people. The roles of Ahlul Bayt, starting with Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, was something that the Prophet started from very early on. In the number of hadith that he mentioned, for example, that Ali is to me as Aaron was to Moses, except there's no prophet after me. That Ana wa Ali abawa hadhihi al-ummah, Ali and I are the fathers of this nation. Ana madinatul ilm wa aliyun babuha, I am the city of knowledge and Ali is its gate, and on and on and on. The emphasis on Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and this is something important for us to realize as individuals who claim to be followers of Ahlul Bayt, and inshallah want to be on this path of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, in starting our prayers. For example, we open up our lectures at times praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the ability to say that we're followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Not that Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, him as an individual, as maybe some other groups may take, that I love my leader because he is my leader, or I love this personality because he is mine. He belongs to my tribe, my nationality. Even if you look at modern day affiliations, when it comes psychologically and sociologically, when we're relating and connecting to people, a lot of times it's this person is from my group, so I have a greater affinity to them. But when it came to Amir al-Mu'mineen, it was all coming down to divine guidance. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, by the Prophet's emphasis, is that he is with truth and truth is with him. Truth turns wherever he turns. If the Prophet is telling me that on the basis that God has told me what the role of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, and on the very intellectual basis, using mind and reason alone to understand what are the foundations of my beliefs to begin with, and how do I even look at the Prophet, again, all of these things that we've discussed, as in the intellectual necessity for the Prophet to be immaculate as that messenger and the one who is encapsulating and manifesting the message of God, that person needs to be immaculate. That's all coming from our reason, not necessarily textual proofs. So when I look at that and I see that relationship, and then I see this individual who does not speak out of whim, turns to Ali ibn Abi Talib and says who Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam is to me, then I look towards Ali ibn Abi Talib as that truth that I have to follow after the Prophet. Because it is just as prayer was prescribed. It is just as justice in our dealings was prescribed. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, the beautiful thing about him, again, following logic and reason, was what? In his personality and his character, he manifested beautifully every aspect and attribute of the faith and its tenets. Then not only was he the individual that the Prophet pointed to, but by necessity, he was the individual that continued to manifest what the Prophet manifested in his own person and in his own character. Now, when it came to pointing to Ali ibn Abi Talib, that he is my successor after me, we know that the message of Islam being the last message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Muhammad being the last messenger himself, why was it not completed and ended with the Prophet and his personality in his individual? Humanity at the time in the 7th century in Arabia, the people were at a level to receive God's message. And they were at the level in order to follow what the Prophet was saying. However, just like in previous times, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave pieces of his divine guidance to people at different times and in different places throughout history, and that Islam, of course, as we know, throughout history, it was all Islam in the sense of the virtue of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and giving ourselves to him in servitude, of acknowledging that purpose that we have as individuals, as servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But from Adam to Abraham to Moses and Jesus alayhim salam, they were all given parts and messages that people at that time would be able to receive. Islam in its completion was not given until the Holy Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century. Now, in the Prophet's role of being the Imam, he would continue to give that role of implementing that message, because at that time the full implementation of the message was not possible. Why? Because humanity was just not at that, did not have the capability to implement that message completely. And this is evidenced through the state and the condition of the people from the 7th century and on. And even the condition that we have and we experience in humanity today, with the presence of God's proof through our awaited Imam, Al-Imam Al-Hujjat Al-Muntadhar Al-Mahdi, Al-Muhammad ibn Al-Hasan Al-Mahdi, when we look at his personality, one of the reasons why he entered into occultation and that he is away from people in that physical sense is because we are not at that state yet to implement fully that part of the message, that part of Islam. Inshallah, we're going to be in the following nights, brothers and sisters, taking a deeper look at the occultation and the position of the Imam. But now and finally with this, the roles of Ahlul Bayt. We've mentioned the Prophet, or a Prophet, a Messenger, and an Imam. The Imams after the Holy Prophet ﷺ are 12. Generally looking at Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, we can't look at them as one by himself and then look at the other individual by himself and look at the other individual by himself, as in a vertical look at the Imams. Instead, the Imams need to be looked at horizontally. From the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and knowing that Ahlul Bayt, the reference to Ahlul Bayt starts with the Prophet himself and continues on from individual, from Lady Fatima alayhi salam, all the way until her descendants until the Imam of our time, Imam al-Mehdi alayhi salam. They need to be looked at horizontally as this group of leaders that have a shared project, a shared vision, a shared mission, and a shared strategy. What were they doing? Now, some of us may look at the Imams and say that they were the spiritual and political successors of the Prophet. Okay. Some may also say that secondly, their role was as the religious guides for people after the Prophet. Okay. If we look merely at those two roles and we stop at that, then we would actually be saying that the Imams didn't actually, all of them technically, fulfill their roles. Why? As the spiritual and political successors of the Prophet, immediately after the Prophet, Imam Ali alayhi salam could not practice what was given to him as in being the political successor of the Prophet, as in being head of the Muslim state, head of the Muslim Ummah, the nation. And every Imam, with the exception of Imam Ali alayhi salam, who would come to the helm at 25 years after the passing of the Prophet, after his successorship was actually declared, with the exception of him, who he merely ruled for 4.5 years or so, and then his son Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, who was the Khalifa for only a few months, every one of the Imams after that did not have the ability to exercise that political role as head of state, head of the Muslim Ummah, in that sense. And also, throughout the history of the Imams, with regards to the secondary aspect of them being the religious guide or religious authority for people, a lot of them looked at the Imams, yes, as religious figures, but not necessarily as the end all for them when it came to religious authority. That they would cite to Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salam, just as they would cite to other scholars of the time. The key here is understanding the role of the Imam in the sense of what were they truly doing. The Imams alayhim salam, yes, they had the right of being the spiritual and political successors of the Prophet. And yes, they were the true religious guides for people afterwards. But they didn't merely suffice themselves, or were not merely manifested in those roles, and the logical necessity of that being what? Anytime that the Imam or anytime that the Prophet or Messenger assumes a role, it needs to be manifested and it needs to be successful. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them that role for them to manifest. The Imam of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was able to implement with the people to the capacity that they were able to receive at that time, in his role as the Imam, as the Prophet, and as the Messenger. And he did. He was able to be, and he was successful at that. He would pass on the torch to guard that religion and guard that message onto Imam Ali alayhi salam and to the rest of the Imams after him. The most important role that the Imams, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, played, in addition to being religious guides, in addition to being exemplars of the Prophet and his message, was that they were the protectors and guardians of the faith and the faithful. Now, what does that mean? When it comes to Islam, and it comes to this beautiful religion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasized, that this is the final religion, and I am satisfied with you within this faith. I'm satisfied with you that this is now the faith that has been delivered to you. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would task Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and all the Imams after him to guard that faith. So much so that Imam Ali would face some of the greatest atrocities immediately after the Prophet, where though he was publicly recognized by thousands of individuals, many of them close companions of the Prophet, that Ali ibn Abi Talib would sacrifice his personal rights to the helm and being that authority over people designated by the Prophet in order to preserve what Islam was, in order to preserve the sanctity and the body of Islam. A number of times, Imam Ali alayhi salam would emphasize that, listen, I am letting go of this merely to protect Islam and its people. Throughout history, you will see definitely that protection of the faith, whether it be through the personality of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam al-Hassan, Lady Fatima alayhi salam before them, and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and the rest of our Imams, emphasizing what? And we'll give this other example on the day of Ashura, which is near and dear to all of our hearts, as that day culminates all of the attributes of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, not merely as being exemplary in perfect ethics, but what did the religion stand for at its very core? It wasn't merely standing up against oppression and injustice. It wasn't merely standing up against a tyrant, because there were times where tyrants would reign over the people. And Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam wouldn't necessarily make a stance that was made in Karbala, but rather, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, through his words on the day of Ashura, and listen carefully to this part. The words on the day of Ashura, إن كان دين محمد لم يستقم إلا بقتل فيا سيوف خذيني. If the religion of Muhammad is not to remain intact except by my death, then all swords take me. It wasn't a call to, I am going to defend the religion of Muhammad with my sword and let the swords take me because this is my choice to defend the religion in this manner. But rather, it was a last resort, and the emphasis and the core of what he wanted to protect was what? The religion. At the same time, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, when he said that, he would say that on an open battlefield by himself. And even the small group of people that were with him were not individuals that he rallied around him. To the contrary, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, from the very beginning of his movement towards Al-Iraq, he would continue to emphasize to people that were in his midst, reminding them, listen, this is where we're going. It's not going to end well. It's not necessarily going to be with all of us coming out on top. When the news of Muslim ibn al-Aqil, for example, came, he would share it with people. When the news of people betraying him or being killed or being taken and brought, he would share it with them. And on the very night, the eve of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam would tell his companions, I want you to take the darkness of the night and go and ride away to your freedom. Be free. They don't want your blood. They want mine. Go and be free. But it was the choice of his companions that they said, O Imam Hussein, or our master, Ya Mawlai, are we not on the path of truth? And if we are, and we're going to die with you, let us die with you 1,000 times over. And we will stay with you. But the emphasis of the Imam to the very end was that protection of the faith, of the religion, and the preservation of the believers, the faithful themselves. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Imam al-Hassan, and what he did in his treaty with Muawiyah. Inshallah, we'll be discussing that as well. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Lady Fatima alayhi salam, going to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa the roles came down to that. And this theme of the preservation of faith and the faithful will continue to be one that is a foundation for building a virtuous community. Inshallah, brothers and sisters, what we covered, we established the differing roles of divine guidance between a prophet, a messenger, an imam, and what goes from receiving the message to giving the message, delivering it, and then implementing it in the role of the imam, and then specifically the roles of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam that culminated in the personalities of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam and his descendants, as in being ones who not only were religious authorities, not only were the divine successors of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but at the same time, and most importantly, they were tasked with the guardianship and the preservation of the faith and the preservation of the faithful. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة والتسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.